this is where we are today. We're on day 3. Day 3, which is the day that basically, well, you're going to find out. It's basically the earth was created, and all the trees and beautiful landscape and everything else you see around you was created. You take a look around the world, and the wonder and amazement of just the trees, just the grass, just the trails that we walk on when we walk through the woods, because I love walking through the woods. I love just seeing everything that God has created and all the diversity, and I believe it's a beautiful thing, and I think that we all need to get outside and enjoy God's grace and God's mercy and God's creation. I talked about this when me and my wife went to Chattanooga, how beautiful I just thought the river was, how beautiful I thought the landscaping was, how beautiful that we have taken what God has given us and designed a beautiful landscape for us to enjoy. But nothing's greater than the design that God created for us. Let's start with Genesis chapter 1, verse 9. Then God said, "Let the waters beneath the sky flow together into one place, so dry ground may appear." And that is what happened. Notice that every time God mentioned something or said something, it just happened. It came to be. This shows God's omnipotence. This shows God's true power, and power how nature itself was formed by Him, all the way down to the tiniest molecule. God called the dry ground land and the waters seas. So before this, there was no ground. It was just water, correct? So the land was formed and the seas separated the land. And God saw that it was good. When God saw that it was good, it is different than when you and I say something is good. When God saw something that was good, that means it was perfect. It was done according to His will. And anytime you do something in your life according to God's will, it's perfect. It's the only time you're going to ever be perfect, by the way, is when you're doing exactly what God tells you, exactly the time He tells you, and exactly the way He tells you. Then God said, "Let the land sprout with vegetation, every sort of seed-bearing plant, and trees that grow seed-bearing fruit. These seeds will then produce the kinds of plants and trees from which they came." And that is what happened. Again, God spoke, it happened. So, let's talk a little bit about evolution for a second. In order for something to come into being, it has to come from something else. Evolution has us believing that every species on Earth came from some certain type of molecule or atom or whatever. Well, the more scientists and biologists discover how the world works and how we can produce other things, we can't do it from a species that's so bizarrely different than another species for it to survive. I mean, we have species on this earth that survive down in the deepest depths of the oceans, things that would crush me and you, crush our lungs, crush our organs. We have species that live on this earth that live in acidic environments. We have species on this earth that live in temperatures that are boiling. We have organisms on this earth that live where there's hardly any oxygen, all the way up in the highest of the mountains. The diversity of the species on this earth is phenomenal, and the way God created this to make it all work together is absolutely incredible to me. I love nature. The land produced vegetations, all sorts of seed-bearing plants and trees with seed-bearing fruit. These seeds produced plants and trees of the same kind, and God saw that it was good. You notice here that He said He just created the trees. So we have a problem with dating things in a lot of ways. We look at trees, we look at tree rings and things of this nature. There's petrified forests that they said took millions and millions and billions and billions of years to form, but when they go dig them up, all the tree rings on the trees that are 100 feet below where the trees are growing above the air have the same amount of tree rings on them. Very unusual, right? Well, no, it's because God created a little ambiguity in His design. He wanted it to be a little bit of a mystery. We as men always want to have as much knowledge as possible. But I'm telling you, in the creation story, that's not important. The creation story is meant to tell us how God created things. It didn't explain how long it took. Some people take it literally as a 24-hour day. Some people take it as each day was millions of years. I have my own theory. You can have your own. But neither one of these is important for salvation in Jesus Christ. The most important thing is for you to believe in Him and that He died for your sins. The most important thing is to understand that you only can have salvation one way and one way only. Through the way, the truth, and the light. And we talked about the light. The light was the first thing God said, let there be light. It wasn't the sun. It was the light of creation that came from His holiness. That is how these trees and plants, because the sun hadn't been created yet. That comes the next day. So how do you grow plants? How do you grow vegetation? And these these seed-bearing plants, trees that grow seed-bearing fruit. How do you grow that without the photosynthesis that causes from the sun? And it was right here. The very first day when God said, let there be light, He was the light that created all these things. That's how you can grow trees. That's how you can grow grass. That's how you can grow all types of plants. Through the light of this world, Jesus Christ. Are you letting your light shine to others? Are you witnessing to others? I hope you are. I want you to think about this week. Think about how the light of the holiness of God created all the trees and all the plants and all the fruit that you eat. And those of y'all that like salad, as you can tell by looking at me, I'm not a big salad person. I'll eat it. But you wouldn't be able to do it without the light of the world, which is God. And He came down here and died for your sins. Remember that this week. Have a great